I'm Jeff Helfrich, State Representative for House District 52. Life's messy, government's messier. When I was on the street, I got to see what worked and what didn't work. And in Salem, I see a lot of things that aren't working. I want to cut through that red tape, get to simpler government, and get to stuff that works for you. Here's our next episode. That's perfect, right? Okay, we rolling? All right. Welcome to the Back to Basics. I'm Jeff Helfrich, State Representative for House District 52. Life's messy. Government's even messier. I'm here to help cut through that red tape and get us back to basics. When I was a police officer, a friend of mine told me that, Jeff, the badge that we wear is the ticket to the greatest show on earth. That gave me a front row seat to life. That showed me the best and worst in people throughout a 25 and a half year career with the Portland Police Bureau, and then later with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, but also showed me most heroic actions and the most evil of things that can happen out on the street. And I take that philosophy of what I learned, that pragmatic approach of problem solving, to the state legislature. And with that, I want to introduce you to somebody who traveled with me down that road in Portland. We took some different paths to get different places, but Mike Reese, he served from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, Portland Police Chief. I think he was the longest tenured police chief I have seen there in a long time. And he is now the director of the Department of Corrections here in Oregon. With that, Mike, it's great to have you here.
Representative Helfrich, it's nice to see you.
Mike, it's Jeff. I've known you for a couple of decades now. It's okay to say Jeff. I appreciate that, though.
Right.
All right. Hey, let's dive into this. You started as a deputy with Multnomah County back in '89. And what was one thing from your days on the street there that stuck with you throughout your career to being at DOC?
Yeah, it's a great question, because one of the first things I learned as a deputy sheriff, brand new kid, working patrol in East County, was treat everybody with dignity and respect. And that has followed me throughout my career. I try and, whether I'm working with our staff or adults in custody, as a patrol deputy or patrol officer, just, the situations you find people in are often traumatic, and sometimes it's the worst day of their life, whether you're a victim of crime, a witness, or a suspect. We wanted to treat everybody with dignity and respect.
Yeah, I mean, we had those opportunities where you intersect in a moment in time with somebody that's at their worst moment and try to bring order out of the chaos that you're watching right there. And I think that was probably, for me, one of the more rewarding things of being in that career field, because you got to go do some really good stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. So you were the police chief from Portland from, I think you went to Portland in '94, was it?
Yeah, I was transferred to the city of Portland from Multnomah County when they completed annexations of East Multnomah County, and started off as a patrol officer, and then sergeant, lieutenant, captain, precinct commander, and then finally chief of police in 2010.
Yeah. You had one of the longest runs as a police chief. And through those experiences, how did you keep people centered in front of you to the mission of keeping people, safe, or your employees or just the general public, to everything that the city kept throwing at you as chief? Because that, to me, was that was the biggest fishbowl I've ever seen in my life.
It's relentless, but I will say on my first day as chief of police, it was a tumultuous change of chief from, Rosie Sizer, who was a great chief, to my appointment. And like a lot of chiefs of police, those transitions are painful. And there was a lot of drama, a lot of emotion. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And it was a really difficult first day. And then I show up at my daughter's lacrosse event at Wilson High School. And as I'm getting out of the car, I get a page that one of our police officers had been shot, and that we had returned fire and shot and killed a young man. And so I went to that scene, and over the next few days worked through that traumatic event. And it reminded me painfully that the most important things that are happening for me as chief of police are the life and death encounters that our police officers face every day.
Yeah, I mean, that really does show you're headed to your daughter's lacrosse game. The pager goes off. At the time, it has pagers, and then we had smartphones at some point. But then all of a sudden, you're waiting to watch the lacrosse game. Next thing, you're at a death investigation, an officer-involved shooting. I mean, it happens in a moment, in a heartbeat. People don't, I don't think, really realize that.
That's right. Yep.
So I retired from the Portland Police Bureau in 2017. You had left, is it 15 or 16?
January of 2015.
2015. And you recruited me to come to work for the sheriff's office, and I did. I was there for a little bit until I became the state rep. But out of our experiences, out of all that, was there something you remember, whether we were working together on riding bikes downtown Portland or transit, or when I was in the personnel division or on horses, whatever it was, that you instilled in me, like, yeah, I saw that in Jeff when I see him do his job?
Well, you were a lot of fun to work with at transit. We rode bikes together occasionally, and I just loved being out there contacting people. And I could see that in you as well, that you liked working with people. And I think that's a real sign of a really good police officer or deputy sheriff, somebody that wants to engage and help people.
Yeah.
We, have the opportunity to do a lot of good.
Yeah. So that reminds me of a story. My partner and I were riding bikes up and down on the bus mall, and Mounted Patrol was there. It was Jeff Kipp was on, I think, Norman or whatever. I can't remember what horse he was on, but of course, Norman decides to leave road apples on the sidewalk. He's got to get off and scoop it off and put it in the street. And that's for people who don't know, road apples, when a horse poops, you got to keep it off the sidewalk and put it in the street. And the street sweepers keep it up, and you have a little half a cookie sheet and take care of business that way. And I remember my partner says, I thought you wanted to be on horses sometime. Why would I want to do that? I don't have to clean my bike. And then, I don't know, it was probably about a year and a half later, I end up on horses. And it's the same officer, my partner, looking at me like, now you're on a horse. Yeah, and my horse pooped about that same time too. I had to clean it up. And he goes, the world was round at that point in time. It was pretty entertaining. Those are, I think, some of the really good memories you have, because you can dwell on the negative, but you can really go back and kind of remember those fun times. Because I remember walking into East Precinct when it was at 42 in Burnside. It was Officer Essler was in there, and he was, rah, rah, new kid's coming in. I can't believe this. I couldn't do police work, man. I was thinking to myself, he just grumpy old guy needs to retire or something like that. But then as you progress in the career, it's like, hey, I see where he was at. Police work has changed. It's evolved, and it keeps evolving. And it was true. When I left in 17, I was like, I'm kind of done. It's, had that taste of 25 years there, but a lot of call volume, a lot of good experiences. And, it's just, when you know it's time to leave, it's time to leave. Just don't hang on. And I think those are those things that I think I appreciate when people do that, and just like, yep, time to do something different. You've done that. You're failing at retirement, I'm going to say, because you were at the Bureau, you're at the Sheriff's office. And then what do you think in your career, all these things you've done, and how it's kept you grounded and keeping in working with people and wanting to make a change? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think that's one of the great things about law enforcement. You mentioned a couple of your positions. You've served in a lot of different roles, including supervisory roles at the Portland Police Bureau and at the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. You can reinvent yourself. You can ride bikes. You can be on Mounted Patrol. You can be part of an administrative function. You can be a supervisor or leader within an organization. So that's one of the great things about law enforcement. There's a lot of different opportunities to, keep your career vibrant and alive for you. And then, of course, always centering yourself on the humanity, whether you're in an administrative function or you're, boots on the ground serving the community, realizing that you're dealing with people. And again, it goes back to, you see people in really difficult circumstances, and you always want to kind of work towards restoring their humanity and making sure that they feel respected.
So I want to go behind the badge for a minute. And you have led in so many different ways, but is there a specific moment in time or a specific event that has stuck with you throughout your career that keeps driving you into being that leader? What is there a moment in time that keeps burning in your brain? You kind of remember that.
There's a
lot of
police officers have a lot of stories,
yeah,
and some we can't share. I think for me, in a leadership role, I learned early in my career as a deputy sheriff, watching someone not do a good job as a frontline supervisor, and the chaos that ensued from that, and the dysfunction that created. If they would have addressed a problem at the lowest possible level, they may have literally kept people from losing careers. And it was a really valuable lesson for me as a new deputy sheriff, watching, as I stepped into my first leadership role. It's like, take care of the little things and they don't become big things.
Yeah. Early and often intervention makes a difference.
That's right.
It really does. You are now at DOC, and I think there's like almost 12,000 people, AICs, and then there's 12 institutions in which you oversee. And we know government's got to do better, and we need to make life simpler, but not just for people on the outside, but people on the inside. And for all Oregonians, what do you think steps government should do to kind of make things simpler for life in general for people?
Well, I think first and foremost, do our job and do it well.
Right.
We're focused at DOC on continuous improvement, and whether we're managing the 12 institutions that you mentioned or providing direct services to the adults in custody, we want to do our very best work. And where we're at today is a baseline, and tomorrow we're going to be better.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can unpack on that. If you had, Mike, one kind of back to basics type of thing, and you kind of mentioned a little bit, but what would it be the takeaway and something our listeners can kind of carry with them, getting back to the basics? What would you give a little nugget?
In a corrections environment, having a really clear mission and focus on what you're trying to do and accomplish. Sometimes we get sideways. We start letting the tail wag the dog a little bit. We're chasing this or chasing that, and we forget what our purpose is. And so for the Department of Corrections, we're really focused on protecting the community, promoting accountability, and transforming lives. And if we stay centered on that, we'll be okay. If we go do something else, and we kind of lose focus. And I think it also speaks to who you are. If that resonates with you, that mission, then you're going to be better at your job.
Yeah, you mentioned mission focus, and then you kind of mentioned mission creep, right? Chasing the tail and stuff like that. That's why I equate it. And when I was House Republican leader, that was challenging to keep everybody focused and moving down that same direction because everybody's independently elected. There's 25 of us, and I was trying to manage things and what's going on and messaging and all that. And you have it at a totally different level than I had as leader, but it's the same thing. People are people, and how do you engage them? And one of the things I learned from you, I called the power of coffee. Go out and have coffee. And I know as an officer, I missed that because I didn't realize I was really wanting to go out and get the blue sheet. Yep, got to get the arrest, get somebody to jail, go find a warrant, and then go have coffee or something like that. And that was something I missed, but I picked it up as a supervisor and then later carried that into my leadership role. Just going out and palling around for half an hour makes all the difference in the world because you want to know people beyond the badge, beyond what's going on and work in that moment because you learn so much about what's going on in their family life because generally something's going sideways for them. It's something family and that bleeds over into work.
Yeah, well, I joke with people and say I do my best work at Starbucks.
It's a true statement.
I respect and really admire people who step into elected service. Politics is not for the faint of heart. And I'm grateful that I have a position managing the Department of Corrections and not doing something else, elected office. I was an elected sheriff for 6.5 years and really appreciated that role, but it's challenging to be an elected official, especially in today's environment.
Yeah, that's the other challenge of being the sheriff. You had everybody's problems you had to figure out in the whole county as this top law enforcement officer in the county. I mean, there's a debate whether it's the DA or the sheriff. I'll just say it's the sheriff because it is. So that said, Mike, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. You've dropped some really good nuggets, but more importantly, I appreciate your friendship. You've been a good mentor for me, and I truly am just humbled that I got to be here and watch you in your career because you've helped me out so much. And let's get back to basics, and I really appreciate it. Till next time, guys, have a great night.